Welcome, everybody, to Who's Your Band? I am Jeffrey Paul. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Sean Morton. How are you, Sean?
I'm much better. I see that you're on the mend and you're looking better. Well, as good as you possibly can look. But I'm happy that you are not dead. Because you know what? You scared me a little bit, Jeffrey. I'm not going to lie. You scared me a little bit. I mean, I had like 6 co-hosts lined up. Don't get me wrong. I want you to understand this right away. I had your replacement filled before I even got the text back. Okay. Yeah. But we did this show last year too. So we're doing it again. And I like this show. I like the way we do this every year. This is our breakdown of the final inductions who are going to be going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for this year. And I know the reason why you are very happy this year.
I'm happy for 2 reasons to do this show. But then I have questions to ask you.
Oh, God. Okay.
About this. Okay. Sure. So let's kind of start breaking down some of the artists. It's a big list. It's an eclectic list this year. And we'll start with, I think, the obvious. She had to get in. Pat Benatar, 110% had to get in. 2 multi-platinum albums, 5 platinum albums, 15 top 40 singles, iconic songs like Heartbreaker, Fire and Ice, Love is a Battlefield. I mean, she's done it all. She influenced dozens. You don't have Hailstorm. You don't have Evanescence, in my opinion, if you don't have Pat Benatar. How did it take her this long to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? The woman was a trendsetter. I just don't understand the criteria. But now that she's in, well-deserved. Congratulations, Pat Benatar. Thoughts, Sean?
And as much as I bust your chops about it, because it's a little weird, kind of like affinity that you have for her. But no, it is definitely it is a worthy induction. I do believe what you said is right. She did set the tone for a lot of people in the female world as far as rock and roll goes. And I think it was just one of those people who is kind of like, people know how good she is. People know the kind of music that she does, but it kind of just flew under the radar a little bit. And I think Joan Jett was in the same case too. Joan Jett was kind of in the same case where it was like, hey, she's like a monster star. Like, why isn't she in the Hall of Fame? And then all of a sudden, when Nirvana got in, people were like, hey, wait a minute, why isn't she in the Hall of Fame? And then the next year she got in. So there was rumblings about Pat Benatar last year.
Yeah, I don't understand why Pat Benatar and the Go-Go's got in before Pat did. I mean, I know they're basically all contemporaries, but I really think that aside from Joan Jett, I mean, who else was the big female hard rocker?
Yeah, there really wasn't. I mean, in that 80s time period, there really wasn't.
Not even the 80s, Sean. We're talking 70s. We're talking 77, 78 when her albums came out.
It's a group, but you can say Heart is the only real ones
that's who I was thinking.
That's the only real like super rock person. Of course there was pops and stuff like that, but as far as rock and roll goes, I think you're right. It was just them. It was Heart and Pat Benatar.
And the thing is, she evolved. It wasn't like she just kind of like stayed in the same type of music. I mean, when you see what she came out with, like, again, like Hell is for Children, and then on to something like We Belong.
Which is personally the song that I play before I go on stage every night, because that is a hard rockin', gets me in the mood to decimate and just fucking be evil, as We Belong.
We Belong is your hard rocking song?
Yeah, dude. Some people put on Eminem's like Lose Yourself or I Have a Tiger. I rock out to fucking We Belong.
It is a hard rock out song.
Oh yeah, dude. It gets me in the right mind frame. You know what I mean? Like anything that was wrong in the day, I have to go on stage for an hour. What's going to get my blood going? Easily, We Belong.
He's such a jerk. No, but my point is that she also kind of changed with the time. She became a big MTV star. She was a trendsetter, a fashion icon. Girls in the 80s wore the Pat Benatar look, the tights with the headband, the short hair. Everything I think that hits the criteria of what puts an artist in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think she had hit, and I think it's way, way overdue.
I'm going to agree with you. It is overdue. I think a lot of it has to do with the MTV, and there's a couple other people that were inducted for this year that I think MTV played a huge part in their getting inducted.
Them.
Yeah.
Let's get to another band here.
Go for it.
Band, okay, which Judas Priest,
yeah.
where I'm shocked and thankful that they are in, because heavy metal doesn't get represented. Hard rock music that we like is always overlooked. You see it in the Grammys, you see it in the American Music Awards, any of these big award shows. Like they had to have Metallica go on with, I think, who was it, with Lady Gaga or somebody?
Yeah.
And Laverne Cox kind of like fucked up the introduction for it and didn't even mention Metallica's name. I just think it's so disrespectful how this brand of music always kind of like takes the back seat. And when you look at tour sales, what's the biggest tour sales out there is hard rock music.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you, arenas and stadiums.
To add to your point, you actually made your own point right there with Judas Priest. They really didn't get inducted into the Hall of Fame. They got the Musical Excellence Award, which is not a voting to get actually into the Hall of Fame. It's kind of like, hey, we know you guys are fucking amazing, but no one voted for you, but we're still going to give you this award. But technically you're in the Hall of Fame, but it's not like, all right, it's like saying you're a professional baseball player and you play for the Mets, but it's the Binghamton Mets. You know what I mean? It's like technically you're still a baseball player, but like, it's not the full deal. You know what I mean? And it sucks because they really do deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. And I don't see it as a bad thing. I just like you said, they don't get enough respect. And I think it's just another way of showing how this genre of music does not get the proper due respect that it's required.
Well, I would like to see, I was hoping that this would open the door for other acts that are way as deserving as Priest. Now, look at Priest's resume here. Over 50 million records sold with limited radio airplay. Okay, I mean, they had a couple of mainstream hits like "Breaking the Law," "Living After Midnight." You got another thing coming, but aside from that, man, you only hear those songs really of Priest on the radio. Then, and even in the heyday of radio, it was really only those songs. You had to listen to like a metal. Yes, night, or you had to like wait up on, I think was it Sunday night or Saturday night, where you had Mayhem Metal on MTV, and you would wait for like a Priest song or a Maiden song to come out. But also look at Priest, man. Rob Halford, maybe one of the top 5 lead singers of all time. And even when he left the band for the short amount of time that he did, Tim Ripper Owens, former guest on the show, amazing. 2 blazing guitar players, KK Downing, Glenn Tippling, fantastic. And the songs, Victim of Changes, The Ripper, Green Manalishi, Diamonds and Rust, and maybe, in my opinion, one of the top live albums ever, Unleashed in the East, I think really, really put this band over the top. I mean, I never got enough of it. And again, my personal favorite song. How many songs, Sean, do you know that started off with a killer drum solo like Painkiller?
That's true. Painkiller and that's my favorite record of theirs too, which is kind of weird because again, the heyday of Priest was really from like, 77 to like 86 or 87, and they came out like that was a 90 or 91 with Painkiller. It was a monster record. Touch of Evil to me is still one of the greatest fucking metal songs that's ever been on wax. You know what I mean? And wax. It was a bit, my edibles are kicking in a little bit, which is totally fine. But MTV got a hold of that one too, and then regular rock radio picked up Touch of Evil for a little while too. So that kind of blasted him a little bit. And then right after that is when he left and he started doing Fight. And then which are great records, by the way. The first record, I don't know if you've ever heard or not, but the first Fight record is fucking outrageous. The second one's atrocious.
I saw Fight when they opened for Maiden at the Garden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was Fight. It was three bands: Fight, Queensryche, and Maiden.
That's a great show.
Yeah,
that's a great show. And then he did that horrible side project. I think it was called Two, which was just so bad, so bad. But no, I agree. This is long overdue for them to be in the Hall of Fame. I wish they had the full thing, though. I just wish they had the full recognition, but
that's the shitty Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're in. Well, we're going to call them Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, right?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to a band that you kind of, I think, were alluding to, or at least one of the two bands I think you were alluding to, and that's going to be Duran Duran. I got to tell you, I am happy to see this band get in. I think they were always kind of dismissed a little bit as being marginal as players. I think over time they really evolved to become really good musicians, especially the guitar player, his name, one of the Taylors. Was it who's the guitar? Andy Taylor.
Right, he's coming back for the Hall of Fame too.
Yeah, he was a great guitar player. But this is a band that I think really took advantage of the video age. Videos like Rio, Hungry Like the Wolf. I mean, they were probably the most polished of the videos of their time. And then just such cool songs too, like Say a Prayer, Girls on Film. And I remember Duran Duran in their heyday, and I was a young guy. I was still in college, and this is when I owned the record store, and they had two massive albums, Rio and Seven and the Rag Tiger. I mean, everyone was talking about Duran Duran. It was almost like they used to compare it to Beatlemania when they played the Garden for the first time. Reflex was number one in the United States and the UK at the same time. And then the band, I think, also kind of like evolved. They evolved their sound. I think it started with a great James Bond song in View to a Kill. I think it's one of the best ones out there. But then in the 90s, I thought they became a little bit more mature. Personnel changes in the band. They added Warren Cucurullo from Missing Persons. And, he had a big influence in their songwriting. And the 1993 almost comeback album, Duran, it was just titled Duran Duran, had classics like Ordinary World and Come Undone, which
it's called the Wedding Album.
It's not called the Wedding Album. People call it that, but because of the cover, but the album is technically called Duran Duran. The album, their entire catalog, they have sold well over 100 million records, 21 top 100 Billboard singles. They weren't just like a bunch of good-looking guys. They were guys that can play, and even I thought the spin-offs were really good. Arcadia, I love the song Election Day, Power Station, Some Like It Hot. And, like I said, glad to see Duran Duran get it. Really? Are you messing with me?
No.
Come on.
No, I mean, yeah, they're good. I mean, I understand why they deserve. I just don't see it. I like them. Like my buddy Scott was like, "Hey, do you want to go see Duran Duran play the Garden?" I was like, Like, I'm never going to go out and go see them in concert ever. Like, that's never going to happen. I have a lot of their stuff on my phone. I listen to their stuff, and they're good. But I think, like I said before, and it was one of the two, and the other one we're going to talk about next.
That's right.
Was MTV the reason why they're as big as they are, or was it their talent? And I think it was MTV. I think they're talented musicians. I think that they're very good. They write great songs and stuff. But I think because they had that look, they had that teeny bopper boy band kind of look before you even said the word boy band. If you think about it, every girl had pictures of whether it was Simon Le Bon or Andy Taylor or John, whoever was there. They were like New Kids on the Block or the Backstreet Boys or stuff like that, which is better music. I think if MTV wasn't around, I don't think they ever make the Hall of Fame.
But they played their own instruments. They're musicians. They have a deep catalog of hits and songs. So I think even without MTV, I still think that catalog is deep enough. Did MTV help them? 1,000%. It's undeniable. But it helped bands like The Cause. It helped Michael Jackson. I mean, it helped Madonna. It helped numerous amount of bands. So I think that you're dealing in an era, and now video really doesn't help bands anymore. Now you got to kind of make it on your songwriting. And I just don't see, like, aside from maybe someone like Ed Sheeran, who's like a prolific songwriter out there now.
I mean, Ed is one. Taylor Swift is another monster.
Yeah,
I know it's not your kind of genre of music. You know what I mean? Taylor's great. Gaga writes a lot of her own stuff, most of her own stuff too. I think she's fantastic. Pink, right, does a good amount of writing, but she has a lot of great writers too. No, I think listen. They're not unwarranted to be in there. They're not unwarranted. I just think that if MTV was not around at that point in time, I don't think that they're as big as they were. That's just like that. And I will say it again about the other band that's going into the Hall of Fame this year, the Eurythmics. I think they're a good band. I think they're a solid band. I think Annie Lennox's solo stuff is way better than the Eurythmics stuff. But when you look at it, 1983 or 84, whenever Sweet Dreams came out, she was one of the faces of MTV. Like whenever you would talk about a music video, they would pop up her face, stark white with the short orange buzz cut.
She had a look.
She had the look, exactly. But they also had the talent to kind of back it up a little bit too. There's a lot of people who had a freaking look that were just atrocious, But do they make it into the Hall of Fame without MTV, without having that, that vision of the stark white, skinny broad who has the orange hair? I don't think they do.
Well, let's take a look at them for a second.
Sure.
Okay. So the Eurythmics, Annie Lennox, Dave Stewart, they came from the Tourists. Okay. Their first album did nothing, and then they make it huge with their on the second album with the hit Sweet Dreams, #1 in the United States. Big hits, Love is a Stranger, There Must Be an Angel, Here Comes the Rain Again, sold over 75 million records, numerous MTV Music Awards, and both Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart are inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think for the short amount of time that they were together before Annie Lennox went solo, I thought they were as impactful as any duo has ever been. And I think based on record sales, I think based on music that has stood the test of time. And not only that, how Dave Stewart kind of changes the sound of music a little bit. I think that alone makes them worthy to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I'd say them more than Duran Duran. I would say them more than Duran Duran.
I think Duran Duran took more advantage of the of MTV because they did appeal to a little younger audience, and I thought Eurythmics not only appealed to a younger crowd, but I think like people in their 30s were still digging them because I think their music really had a lot of substance behind it.
Yeah, I mean, again, you also have two monster songwriters too,
right?
And you see, I mean, did he really do anything big after the Eurythmics was broken up?
Became a great producer. Worked a lot with Jeff Lynne, and he wound up going on. He won Grammys for producing other albums.
Wasn't he in Tin Machine with David Bowie?
No.
Who am I thinking of?
I think you're thinking of Soupy Sales Kids. They were in Tin Machine.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, one was the drummer, and one was the guitar player.
Didn't know that.
Yeah,
didn't know that.
I liked Tin Machine. They were hard, and then okay, so there was one more artist that I wanted to talk to. And then, in my opinion, that would have been the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then I wanted to ask you a question. So the one other person who I loved getting involved was Carly Simon.
Okay.
All right. Great singer, great songwriter. And I wish Lynette Palladino was here for this, because if Stevie Nicks is in as a solo artist, then just as much as I feel about Pat Benatar, Carly Simon had to get in. Okay, if Stevie Nicks gets in as a solo artist.
Okay, number one, you cannot compare Carly Simon to Stevie Nicks.
That's right, because Carly Simon's much better.
Not even remotely close.
First of all,
that accident really jostled your brain.
Okay, look at her resume. 13 top 40 singles. Let me remind you of some of these songs, okay? Just in case you forgot. Anticipation, Haven't Got Time for the Pain, You Belong to Me, Coming Round Again, Jesse, the mega hit, You're So Vain. I mean, it wasn't just James Taylor. I mean, how about another James Bond song, Nobody Does It Better, from The Spy Who Loved Me? And in 94, she's inducted into this Songwriters Hall of Fame. Okay. Stevie Nicks, as a solo artist, doesn't have that resume.
Yeah, hers is better.
You can't just say it was better. You know, she doesn't have the statistics to back it up the way
statistics. You know what statistics mean? It's something in Italian we call ungats. It means nothing. Stats mean nothing. Because let me explain something to you. How many amazing comics do you see? People, oh my God, I love so-and-so. I love so-and-so. And then you watch their special and you realize how fucking much of a hot piece of garbage that comedy special is. But the statistics show that they're selling out all these places. And then me and you can work a show or go see a local show with, whether it's either me or you or any of our friends who are great comics. They're not getting the same notoriety as the guy who has the special, right?
That's true. I mean,
that's mean nothing.
Of course, I'm going to agree with that statement.
I really just had to throw you in to that just to make you feel better. But stats don't mean a goddamn thing.
Then tell me why. Make the argument for why is Stevie Nicks better than Carly Simon, or even in the same conversation.
Just the catalog itself, her solo stuff is off the charts.
Her catalog does not compare to Stevie
She
Nicks.
is a pop culture icon. Carly Simon is not a pop culture icon. Number two. Okay. She came from a major band and had amazing success, which a lot of people don't have when you break away from like your bread and butter. A lot of people try and do it and they just don't, you know.
Okay, so
it's a personal preference too. I personally prefer Stevie Nicks over Carly Simon.
Okay. So agreed that Stevie Nicks goes in with Fleetwood Mac, but I think as a solo artist, I think Carly Simon has it all over her.
I think when you had your record store, you had Stevie Nicks in and you made a pass at her and she shot you down very quickly.
I just think she has a limited amount of hits. She only had a couple of solo albums. I don't even think she had. I can't even think of 5 big solo records that she had.
Talk to Me, Stand Back, Edge of 17. That's the 3 off the top of my head real quick. Stop Dragging My Heart Around with Tom Petty.
It's a Tom Petty song. Are we going to start going? And then we might as well do the Leather and Lace.
She's phenomenal. Let your personal hatred go. Listen, I have personal hatred for you, but I meet up here every week at for an hour a week. I put everything aside for the greater good.
You do.
I do.
Right. Let's get on to this.
Let's do it.
And we're not going to talk about the producers who got in. Okay. But then there are 4 more acts.
Yep.
Okay. Eminem, Dolly Parton, Lionel Richie, Harry Belafonte.
Okay.
Gotta tell you, I don't think they belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think they're all great in their own way. But do they? If you're going to put it in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, how about just renaming it to the Music Hall of Fame? And
I agree with that.
And then isn't there already a Music Hall of Fame? So tell me what part of Lionel Richie is rock and roll. And I love Lionel Richie. He's a great songwriter. I always respected him. I always thought he was great. He wrote my favorite Kenny Rogers song. Love the guy. But he is not rock and roll.
No, the problem, and this is just my personal opinion, and you might agree with me, you might not agree with me. Yes, it is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I think what happened is in the early 2000s and late 2000s, it had a shift. And it had a shift where pop culture became so important. And even though these people are great musicians, they're also pop culture icons. So I think that's the reasoning why they feel the need to instill these people into the Hall of Fame. Dolly had one pop song, if you really think, maybe two.
What song is that?
9 to 5, which was a pop, kind of a pop crossover hit, and then Islands in a Stream with Kenny Rogers,
which is a Bee Gees song.
Right, it's a Bee Gees song. I understand that. Do I think that she belongs in the Hall of Fame? I really don't. But again, she's this. Yeah, well, no, she was like, she said she's respectfully declining, and then they said, no, tough shit, we're putting you in, and then she's like, okay, put me in. I get it. And what she was trying to do is, not take away votes from other people, which I thought was very commendable. I really did. As far as country music goes,
she's cool as fuck. I love her.
Country music goes, you have country music women. She's on the Mount Rushmore. 110%.
100%.
You have a pop culture Hall of Fame. She goes in there 100%.
But rock and roll Hall of Fame?
Nah, not really.
That's right.
Not really. Sorry. I mean, but she's great. Got a great rack, but I don't see it.
And what do you think about Eminem?
100% should belong in there
in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not hip hop.
You already made the crossover to have hip hop people into the Hall of Fame, right? Have you not put the biggest hip hop artists of the last 25 years?
Yeah, let me ask you, did LL Cool J deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
No, but again, what did I just say? It's all about pop culture.
You know what I think it's about? I think it's about being woke. I don't think so. I think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wants to be woke. I mean, I like Janet Jackson. She's not rock and roll. I'm sorry, she doesn't belong. Well, listen,
Johnny Cash isn't
Hall of Fame.
Johnny Cash isn't rock and roll either. Why is he
country?
Hall of Fame? He's country. But again, that's said. Listen, I love to jump on the woke bandwagon and say how things are horrible because people are too woke. Isn't the case with this? It's not the case with this because again, you got, like I just said, this is more of a pop culture thing. And some people they try and put in because they forget that they weren't in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Is that makes sense? Like Carly Simon is one of them. How does she slip under the radar for 30 years going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Pat Benatar is the same thing. Joan Jett, same thing. Other Bon Jovi took a long time to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's like, do they put them in just because they realized they were assholes and they forgot to put them in? Or do they really legit deserve to be in there? Eminem, I definitely say deserves to be in there.
I mean,
you don't like rap, number one.
I do like rap, and I always was an Eminem fan. I do like rap. People sometimes say because of the attitude. I look at it like the music, and now what becomes the criteria? Nona Hendrix. How did Nona Hendrix get in before Pat Benatar?
I have no idea who Nona Hendrix is.
Okay. I mean, there's a bunch of, you want to go back to the origins of rock and roll and put some of these blues guys in. Understandable. I get it. They deserve to be in because that's where rock and roll derived from. But Eminem is a flat out hip hop artist.
Yeah. So is Jay-Z. So is Run DMC.
Jay-Z should not be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Again,
because he did a collaboration with Linkin Park.
It's music. So that's what it is. It comes down, hey, we have this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now all of a sudden, okay, we're going to put rappers in. Okay, we're going to put country people in. But it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's got to be renamed. That's the whole thing.
Or open up another building. Now, we never ask listeners to do this. I would like to see, when people listen to this show, I would like to see some comments and what the listeners kind of think about this debate on whether Eminem, Dolly Parton, Lionel Richie, Harry Belafonte, should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or should there just be a new building called the Music Hall of Fame, or the Pop Music Hall of Fame?
I think we're too far gone. I think that's what it is. I think it's been established too long, and it's way too far gone to separate and to put other things. Listen, there's no Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. Did you know that? I've been saying for 20 years. I've been saying
they tried to do something like that with the Rock Honors.
Right. 20 years ago, I was saying they should have a Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. I had the first 5 picked out automatically. You got to do 5 people a year.
Sure. Wasn't that what the Golden Gods Award was?
It was like that. Well, that was more of a heavy metal, like a current heavy metal kind of thing. But yeah, it was. If you pick top 5 off the top of your head for Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, who do you start with? It's very simple.
I think you got to go.
You go Black. No, absolutely not. You go Black
Sabbath.
Metallica, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, and Pantera. That's your 5 first that go into the Rock and Roll, to the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame.
Why not Zeppelin?
Because they're not heavy metal. They're rock.
They're hard rock. They're hard rock blues band.
As my friend Pete says, they're the greatest blues cover band of all time.
Is Peter a hack comic?
He wants to be.
Of course he does.
I'm going to give him your number. You can teach him.
Yeah, I'll give him some lessons on how to do hacky jokes. What about that Led Zeppelin? How did Robert Plant?
He wasn't moving around a lot. Did he have some lead in his shoes? Huh?
Hey, get the lead out, Robin. Why don't you?
Oh, God.
All right, man. So I guess on that note, this doesn't have to be like a super long show. I just really wanted to talk about.
I think it was a good. I think we do this every year. I mean, this is the last year we're doing this with no question because we're not making this through another year. I'll tell you that right now. But what I'm saying
why are we going to make this through another year?
Oh, the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh God, no. You mean I make it till fucking June? But anyway,
it's May.
Exactly. So
we got one more month left.
Yeah, and we have a couple in the can. This might be the last episode.
We got to get to our 100th episode. We're getting close.
We're close. I in all, I think this was a very solid year. I think this was a very eclectic, diverse crowd that was going into the Hall of Fame. I don't disagree with almost any of them. I think a lot of people deserve to be in there. And there's still some glaring omissions that are not in there. But I think Priest is the start of one of them, to get the ball rolling. Hopefully you get an Iron Maiden or you get a Devo or the New York Dolls.
Really, the New York Dolls?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many bands that deserve to be in this, the Sex Pistols had one album and they made it into the Hall of Fame. You know why? Because they changed a style of music. And
I have debated this too. I mean, they weren't great musicians. It was a good album. Is it worthy to be like hailed as one of the best of all time?
I agree with you. No, it doesn't.
Maybe they should be like in a section called influences.
This is when I lost faith in music journalism. And I'll tell you when it was. It was about 20 years ago. Yeah, just about 20 years ago. I was working at a law firm and I knew there was another lawyer there who was a great guitar player. And we're talking about Rolling Stone's top 100 guitar players of all time. And they put out the list. And at number 70 was Eddie Van Halen.
Then that has no credibility.
7-0 when they
was ahead of him.
Well, when they put Kurt Cobain at number 11.
Jesus Christ!
That was, and listen,
that's one of these like shitty Rolling Stone writers just trying to get a little something going for his name, but you can't take that seriously. That's just garbage. That's straight up garbage.
Yeah, I agree. And like for me, there was no bigger Nirvana fan than me. But
who was number one? Jimi Hendrix?
I think Jimmy was number one. I think Dwayne Allman was number two.
I mean, I can live with that.
I can live with it too. I think Clapton was 3, and I think Jeff Beck was 4. Like it was
they're all great guitarists. But there's no way on this planet that Eddie Van Halen you could have put as number one. But
no question.
There is, and you can make an argument for it. But there is no way you could defend that he is the 70th. The 70th.
Right. I don't care. Listen, if he was 12th and Kurt Cobain was number 11, I would still lose my shit.
Yeah, there's no way Kurt Cobain should be ahead of Eddie Van Halen.
But again, it's that mystique. It's that, he died so young.
So did Dwayne Allman.
As a lot of Nirvana stuff great? Sure, they have a lot of great stuff. Is a lot of it garbage? Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. A lot of it is just noise. Is absolutely just noise. And he admitted he was never a great guitar player. So again, I don't put a lot of faith into these kind of things because again, an award is bullshit. Like I can tell you like what's going to be nominated for the Grammys next year. And I'll tell you my favorite album is not going to be on that list.
Of course not. I'm curious about that guitar playlist. I'm a guy.
They've changed it a few times now. They've done it 2 more times after that issue.
But if you're gonna talk about like the Nirvanas of the world, where does a guy like Billy Corgan fit in?
Billy's a better guitar player.
Of course he is. He's a great guitar player.
Much better guitar player. I don't even know if he was on the list, to be honest.
That would be disgraceful.
This is where you talk about the woke generation. Okay, this is what you talk about because
then I bet there was no way they would put Ted Nugent on that list.
No, not well. He was on, but I don't think he was anywhere
close.
But
a great guitarist.
Look at it this way. They do the top 500 songs of all time, right? And for years, it's been like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. Am I a Dylan fan? Not in the least bit. Do I like that song? It's a good song. Is it a great song? Absolutely. It was number one for a long time until last year when they changed it to You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman by Aretha Franklin, which was originally number 85 and went to number one.
Why is that, Sean?
Because we are living in a woke society.
That's my point.
Had to make a change like that. What happened in the time frame from when that list was originally put out to last year that made this song so ridiculous? You can't justify it. It
checks
like
all the boxes.
It's like Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Okay. Everybody in the world knew that song. When the goddamn Sopranos put that in the final episode, in the final scene, that song took a life of its own afterwards. And it's even bigger today than it was 20 years ago when that show was ending.
You make me feel like a natural woman isn't even like the best Aretha Franklin song.
Right, exactly. Like she's got
so many, two better songs.
Come on. It's 100%. But what happens is, like I'm saying, with the Journey thing, is that it takes a mind of its own, and then it starts taking off and taking off and taking off. I can understand if that song went from number 200 to say number 40. You can understand because there was a resurgence. There's a whole pop culture thing behind it with the Sopranos and everything like that. It went back into mainstream society again. I get that. There was nothing that was major that happened with Aretha Franklin that made it go from 85 to number one.
Was the year she died?
No, it was like 3 years ago. She died like 6 years ago.
Feels like she just recently died.
Well, she was a big girl. She could have died twice.
She just kept hanging on. Like Fred Sanford, I'm coming.
Elizabeth. They'll take your face, smash them, and don't make gorilla cookies.
You knew who made that show was Aunt Esther.
She's great.
But Wanda Page was a great comic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dirty. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And Red Fox was the filthiest of all of them.
And in real life, they were good friends.
Yeah, I knew that. It's a great show, too. Never see that on television coming out of you.
No, because it's kind of like anything good, anything that's funny, anything that is a little edgy. No, that can't be shown. No, you can't have that. You got to do a remake of The Wonder Years.
Which Fred Savage is gone, by the way.
I never watched one episode of this.
I haven't watched it either, but he got fired for inappropriate conduct.
Take his cock out.
He's diddling. I'm telling you, he's diddling. He's diddling something.
I think on that note,
this is a good episode again.
This was a good episode, and we'll be back with some guests. But I just wanted to talk with Sean on this, and just like just kind of like shoot the breeze a little bit on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions. What you thought about this year's class. And I think we're basically on the same page.
Yeah,
although
I agree.
I do think I am happy with the Eurythmics and Duran Duran.
Listen, I'm happy for them too. And it's just my personal opinion. I can take personal opinions and remove them from facts. And facts are, they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame like Stevie Nicks does. So anyway, no, huh? Okay.
No, she not as a solo artist.
We agree to disagree, Jeffrey.
She does not belong as a solo artist. And then she was, I hated her set that year that she was inducted in. The Cure was the band that killed it. God. Great. They were great.
I know you're a big Cure fan.
You open up your set with a song about heroin addiction. Come on, man. That's
I know, man. I know that was a struggle you had for a long time,
man. Like when I was on the Bowery, man.
Chasing the Dragon, right?
Yeah. But I was living under the bridge.
Lower East Side. I'm Rivington, Essex, man. 80s is a bitch.
Yeah.
Get up.
I could really identify with Anthony Kiedis.
Fucking live in New Dorp. Knock it off.
I don't live in New Dorp. I live in a much better place than New Dorp.
Well, this was fun.
Yes, it was. All right, guys. We will catch you next time. Sean, anything to add before we get out of here?
Live long and prosper.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.